Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're navigating a field of study that isn't just for, intellectual understanding. It's really designed for the most practical application you can imagine.
It is.
We're talking about preparing ourselves for life's inevitable changes, and maybe the biggest one of all.
Yeah.
The reality of solitude.
It's good to be here. And you're right. This isn't about simply weathering external storms. It's about finding the ultimate, unwavering ally.
An ally.
We're talking about a true friend, someone who stays with us, who is entirely reliable, and who will not abandon us until the very last moment of our lives.
And that friend isn't some external person.
That friend is found deep within.
That is a profoundly powerful concept, especially now, in a world where we rely so heavily on external connections, on social media, on everything outside. So our goal today is to really distill this wisdom into practical, daily knowledge. We want to make sure that if you're listening, you gain tools you can actually use right away.
Absolutely. And the wisdom we're analyzing today, it comes from a really powerful discourse. It's titled, Having the Breath as a Friend Until the Day We Die.
Wow.
This teaching was delivered by the respected master, Luang Por Pramote Pamojjo, on September 19th, 2020.
Okay, so we're taking the complex, subtle points from Luang Por's talk and grounding them in concrete examples. The goal is to maximize the benefit for anyone listening, whether you're, new to this path or you've been practicing for years.
Exactly. Let's get into it.
That's
Luang Por Pramote starts with what he considers the most fundamental, the most non-negotiable principle of this entire path, self-reliance.
okay.
He states it very clearly. He says, no one can practice for us. We must do the work ourselves.
That really flies in the face of what a lot of people seek when they approach spirituality, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, we often look for a guru, a teacher, a system, something or someone to kind of carry us.
Precisely. And he says the master can only show the way. They're the guide who points to the start of the trail.
You have to walk it.
You have to walk the path with your own feet. He says quite plainly, no one can truly help us. Reliance on others for our own ultimate spiritual freedom is, it's simply misplaced.
Okay, so let's unpack the danger of neglecting that personal practice. What happens when we just rely on the external stuff, reading books, listening to talks like this one, without actually doing the internal work?
He uses a wonderful term. People who neglect genuine practice, he says they get lost in the world. In Thai, it's hongla.
Lost in the world.
They get distracted by worldly affairs, by news, by drama, and they're wasting the most precious resource we have.
Time.
He really drives this point home with an anecdote. He says something like, it wasn't that long ago we were all celebrating New Year, and now...
And now it's almost the end of this year.
Exactly. He says, if you say that one whole year has slipped away and you haven't started, that time is just gone.
Ugh, that hits hard. We feel like time is this abundant thing, but in reality, every moment we spend not cultivating our awareness is just a moment that vanishes. You look up and a year, or even a decade, is gone.
It's the mind's constant tendency to wander. He describes it as the mind throwing itself away.
Rolling itself away.
We let our minds chase every fleeting thought, every notification on our phone, every piece of news. The practice is the deliberate, ongoing effort to stop letting the mind wander off and to bring it back.
Back to its foundation.
Back to its foundation.
And that foundation, that unwavering companion that never throws itself away, as you said.
Yeah.
That's the breath.
Yes. This is where we get to the core teaching, Anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath.
Right.
Luang Por teaches that if we truly have the breath as a companion, we don't need other friends. We can live alone comfortably and contentedly.
Okay, let me push back on that a little. How does the breath qualify as an ultimate friend? If we're practicing self-reliance, isn't the breath just, a biological function that's going to fail eventually anyway?
That's the whole point. It is the only friend that remains loyal until death. Think about it. Every single person we love, every relationship, every possession we cherish, it can and will leave us. Or we will leave them.
That's true.
But the breath is different. When the breath finally leaves, when it stops, that is the exact moment we die. Until that final second, it is here. It is dependable. It is always, always present.
That completely reframes it. It's not just a biological necessity. It becomes this profound spiritual anchor.
It is the anchor.
So what's the practical instruction for treating the breath like a companion? How do you do that?
It's remarkably simple, and that's the beauty of it. Luang Por's instruction is just, when breathing out, feel it. When breathing in, feel it. Just keep feeling it continuously.
So you're not controlling it?
Not at all. The body breathes, but the mind The mind just watches. It's a passive, friendly observation, not a forceful, I must concentrate kind of thing.
Just noticing.
You just become familiar with this friend until you start to internalize that feeling of being observed, of being angered.
But what about those first few times you try? Or the first 100 times, for some of us? When the mind feels chaotic, scattered, maybe really anxious, just trying to feel the breath can feel impossible because the mind is just screaming.
A very common hurdle, and he addresses it directly. If the mind is too chaotic, the Thai word is fengsen, like scattered or fussy, then simple observation might not be enough to get an initial foothold.
You can't grab onto it.
Right. So this is where a preliminary technique using mental repetition or borichem becomes really useful.
Right.
But, and this is important, it requires a specific modification to prevent tension.
Okay, that modification is key. Because you often hear about repeating Buddha or a mantra, but he specifies a way to do it that stops the mind from getting too tight. How does that work?
So if the mind feels tight or tense, he instructs you to start with the out-breath first.
The out-breath, okay.
When breathing out, you mentally repeat, though. Then, and this is the crucial part, you wait slightly. You leave it for a moment, as he says, ting wai noi noing. You just let everything relax and release.
A little pause.
A little pause. A release of tension. Then, when the body naturally breathes in, you mentally repeat, put.
Oh, I see the genius in that. Starting with the out-breath and though is an act of letting go. It softens the effort before you even bring in the put on the in-breath.
Exactly. If you start on the in-breath, you risk increasing that tightness, that feeling of being overly compressed or focused.
Ajamya 99 feel.
Yes, that's the one. The key is release. This practice should never, ever feel forced or strenuous. And if we approach it with that relaxed, consistent repetition, the consistency itself starts to cultivate mental energy.
And what happens then?
When the mind is stabilized and has more energy, the stronger, more immediate distractions, the heavy defilements, the kilesa, they start to weaken. They don't have as much power over you.
I see. So this initial calm is the prerequisite for all the deeper work that comes later.
You have to have it. You're essentially building a reservoir of mental strength, day by day, breath by breath. You're ensuring the mind isn't wasting its energy chasing every external object, but is consolidating its power inwardly.
It's like charging a battery.
That's a perfect analogy. This constant, gentle attention strengthens our ability to stay present, and that presence is the foundation for everything else.
Okay, so once we've established the breath as a reliable companion, as that anchor, we're better equipped to face, well, the bigger things.
The inevitable realities of life, particularly loneliness and impermanence. Luang Por is very direct about this. He insists, we must practice being alone because eventually we will be alone.
That's a stark statement, but it's undeniably true. It forces us to confront what is probably the deepest human fear, abandonment.
He brings it down to the most relatable scenarios. He says, you might have a loving spouse, children, a huge support network now. But then he asks, what happens to the old couple?
One of them is always left behind.
Eventually, one spouse passes away and the other is left alone. Children grow up, they move away, they build their own lives. We have to prepare now to be okay, relying solely on Dhamma and our breath.
And if we don't prepare, what's the crisis he's warning about?
The crisis is the emotional vacuum. It's the moment when you look around and the people who define your entire life are just gone. The feeling of utter emptiness, he calls it wang plow lue adjourn, becomes unbearable.
And that emptiness breeds suffering.
Profound suffering. Fear, panic, despair.
You know, a lot of people, especially in the modern West, believe that financial security is the ultimate preparation for old age. The idea is, if you have enough money, surely you won't suffer as much when you're old and alone.
He tackles this head on. Money definitely helps, he says. It's better to have it than not. But it is not the ultimate solution.
Why not?
He observes that even if you have substantial funds, if you're truly alone, the suffering remains. You might be sitting there thinking, I have all this money, but why is there no one here with me?
The money can't fill that void.
It can't. And of course, the suffering is compounded exponentially if you are elderly, incapacitated, and you don't have resources. He paints a very vivid picture of being confined to a bed, confused, struggling with basic bodily functions.
That combination of financial struggle, physical incapacity, and total solitude, that's the ultimate nightmare scenario. And a very powerful motivation to practice now.
Absolutely, which is why he gives us this crucial warning. Do not rely on children or spouses as ultimate refuges. They are not permanent shelters. They will inevitably leave, or they will pass away, or we will leave them. The only refuge that travels with the mind is its own state of development, its own cultivation.
This brings us to a really profound spiritual insight that underpins all of this self-reliance. And that's the realization of anatta, or a non-self, especially regarding our own bodies.
Yes.
How does consistent breath practice lead to this realization that the body is just borrowed property?
Through that constant observation we talked about, seeing the body breathe, move, sit, get sick, all while the mind remains the watcher, a separation starts to occur naturally.
The mind starts to see the body as an object.
An object. Luang Por explains the body's elemental truth. It's merely borrowed material dat, or wathu, from the world.
It's just a combination of genetic material from our parents, and then it's built up and sustained by external things. The food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, we're constantly taking it in from the outside world.
Precisely. And yet we pour all our energy into maintaining this temporary vehicle. We worry about it, we love it, we cling to it, believing it's us. He says we think, this is me, this is my body, I will worry for it. And that, he says, is the grand illusion of attachment.
But that illusion shatters pretty dramatically during times of intense sickness or old age, when the body really starts to rebel against us.
That is the moment of truth. When we're seriously ill, unable to move, and the body refuses to obey our commands. We can't command it not to age, not to ache, not to get sick. We realize in a very stark way that it is not our property, it is not an obedient servant.
And that's the realization that it has to be returned.
Yes, Kun Jiao Kong returned to the owner, or Kun Lo Kao Pai returned to the world.
So it's not even ours to begin with.
Not at all. And this insight, this is the powerful part, it extends far beyond just our physical form. Luang Por asks, if the body, which is our closest companion, our vehicle through life, isn't truly ours, how can we possibly lay claim to anything further removed from us?
Children, spouses, houses, money.
All of it. It's all even more separate property.
So that realization about the body acts like a powerful lever, releasing our attachments to everything else at the same time.
It does. It has to. Therefore, the practice is a preparation for this return. We should be practicing releasing the body before death forces us to.
How do you do that?
We just continually watch, know, and observe the body. We allow the mind to remain the consistent knower, the watcher. And if the mind wanders, if it flees outside Nipe, we must immediately know it has fled.
Just see that it's gone.
See that it's gone and gently bring it back. That vigilance is the true maintenance of our spirit. It's far more important than maintaining borrowed property like a car or a house.
It's an active, daily rehearsal for the ultimate surrender.
Beautifully put, yes.
Okay, we've established the consistency required to build that inner strength. Now, let's talk about leveraging it. When the mind has power, what was the phrase?
Jit me rim me rong me gomlong kunma. The mind has strength, power, and energy.
Right. How do we transform that calm, that samadhi, into genuine insight or panya?
So consistent mindfulness of the breath not only calms the mind, but it really strengthens it. As that samadhi deepens, the breathing might become extremely subtle, very faint, or it might even seem to cease altogether.
And at that stage, what might a meditator experience?
This is where you might experience intense rapture or piti and happiness, sukha. And sometimes a brightness or a light, sangsawang, may appear.
So if that light or that feeling of rapture appears, is that the goal? Is that the end point?
That's a great question. No, it's just a way station, a very pleasant one, but a way station nonetheless. The practitioner should stay with the light or the piti and sukha, just knowing them.
But not clinging to them.
Never clinging. And when those pleasant states fade, the depth of samadhi can sometimes lead to an even more profound realization. The world, and even the sense of the physical body, seems to vanish entirely.
And what's left?
What remains is often perceived as just the pure mind. Luete jit duangte.
Wow. That sounds like a powerful confirming moment.
Yeah.
It confirms that fundamental separation of body and mind you were talking about.
It is the confirmation. And once the mind is energized and has experienced that clarity, we use that strength to turn toward insight, or vipassana.
And there are two main ways to do that, right?
Yeah.
Observing the body and observing the mind.
Two primary avenues, yes.
Yeah.
We can start with Kayanupassana, which is observing the body.
So you bring the attention back to the body.
You bring that energized mind back to the body, seeing it breathe or walk or sit, while the mind just remains that detached watcher. This reinforces the understanding that this body is not me, nor does it belong to me. It's just an object being experienced, not the subject doing the experiencing.
And the second avenue, Chittanupassana, observing the mind itself. That seems a lot more subtle.
It is. Here we observe the mind working. You watch how the mind moves. It moves to the eyes to see a sight. It moves to the ears to hear a sound. It moves internally to think a thought.
So you're watching the process of perception itself.
Exactly. And by observing the mind as a sequence of actions, moving, shifting, experiencing, we directly see its impermanence, mai tiang, and its lack of a solid self, mai chai tua rao. We see that the mind is fundamentally dynamic and uncontrollable.
Now, here's a critical point that I think a lot of people in the practice community struggle with, and that's the exhaustion that can come from focusing on the subtle mind too much. How does Luang Por advise people to handle that mental fatigue?
This is a hallmark of his teaching. It's all about knowing when and how to switch the base of your focus.
Okay.
If the mind becomes exhausted from observing these subtle mental phenomena, the Namadhamma, he says the practitioner must return to the body, the Rupa Dhamma.
Why is the body considered a better object when the mind is tired?
Because the body is a coarse or simple object. The Thai word is yab. It's just easier to maintain focus on something simple, like the feeling of the body breathing or the sensation of your feet on the floor when you're walking.
It's less slippery.
Much less slippery. This coarse focus helps recharge and strengthen your mindfulness, your sati, and your concentration samadhi. Once the mind is rested, strengthened, and stable again, then you can switch back to watching the subtle mental movements. It's a smart, cyclical way to sustain your energy.
I really appreciate that clarification. The body is the anchor. It's always there. It's always easy to find. The mind is more like the weather, subtle, rapidly changing, and easy to get lost in. So switching back to the body just stabilizes the anchor.
Exactly. And this adaptability is key. It also often correlates with a practitioner's natural temperament, which he also addresses.
Right, the different paths based on temperament.
So first you have the Samathayanika. These are people who naturally incline toward deep concentration. They might use techniques like kasina, focusing on a fixed object, or intense body contemplation. They often achieve very high, sustained levels of samadhi.
And that temperament is better for?
Better suited to initially observing the body or feelings, the Dhammavipassana, which requires a bit more stability.
And the other type?
Then there are the Vipassanayanika. These are people who focus immediately on insight. They observe the mind and its defilements directly. These practitioners rely more on what's called khanika samadhi, or momentary concentration.
Momentary concentration, so they don't need that deep, sustained calm.
Not in the same way. For them, merely knowing the instant the mind has wandered and immediately returning to awareness, that act provides enough concentration to generate insight.
But regardless of where you start, whether you're a calm type or an insight type, the ultimate insight that breaks the fetters, the one that truly cuts off defilements, that requires a deeper quality of concentration, correct?
Crucially correct. Luang Por emphasizes that the true knowledge that leads to liberation requires the mind to spontaneously reach apana samadhi, or absorption samadhi, at the moment of breakthrough.
Spontaneously.
This isn't a state we can force. It's the inevitable culmination when true, fundamental insight arises. Our job in our daily practice is just to ensure the mind has enough power and clarity for that spontaneous moment to occur when it's ready.
So whether we start with deep calm or momentary insight, we're all working toward a condition where the mind is strong enough for absorption to just happen automatically, when the insight needed to shatter delusion is ready to fire.
That's the path.
Understanding the paths is one thing, but applying it successfully in the noisy, distracting modern world requires avoiding some very common traps.
Absolutely. And the first trap Luang Por identifies is just external focus.
The lure of constant distraction. If we don't have something we have to do, we find ways to bother other people, or more commonly today, just get lost in our phones.
Indeed. We waste vast amounts of time playing internet, as he says, or chasing external stimuli when we should be looking inward. He's also highly critical of practices that rely on external objects, or wathu, because they foster dependence and are just impractical for the true deep dive into the self.
He specifically called out practices like kasina using fire or light or colored discs for concentration. What's his core critique of those methods?
The critique really centers on practicality and the ultimate goal. If you use a fire kasina, for example, you have to carry the fire or the object with you everywhere. He jokes about it saying, what if you're in a car? What if you're in the ICU? What if the power goes out?
The practice becomes limited by your geography and your resources.
Exactly. It costs money. You have to buy candles or light bulbs. The breath, on the other hand, is free. Mai tong su, He adds a little humorous note that soon we might have to buy bottled air, but for now,
For now, it's free.
it's the perfect, portable, cost-free tool. And more importantly, while kasina can lead to certain powers, or riddhi, it struggles to switch the mind toward panya, toward insight, because it pulls the mind outward, toward the visualized object.
Whereas the breath, being internal, naturally encourages looking inward.
It naturally encourages introspection. It's the ideal sustainable training mechanism.
So once we've chosen the right tool, the breath, the next level of training involves developing a really rapid response time to crises. And this is his now famous 3-second rule.
This is where the training becomes acute and really survival-focused. Luang Por shared his personal training goal when he was still a layperson. He said, "When the mind gets caught by an emotion, anger, sadness, fear, it must be trained to become free, enlightened, and aware within 3 seconds."
3 seconds. Why is that precise time frame so critical?
It's the time of crisis. That rapid response time ensures psychological safety. He offers this really powerful, relatable example of a sudden car accident.
Oh,
You might only have 2 or 3 seconds to fully gather yourself, to regain awareness and calm before the moment of impact. If you can maintain your sati, your awareness, during that brief window, you are safer, both physically and spiritually.
that is a powerful metric for mental agility. It moves the practice from a cozy retreat environment to the harsh reality of life and death situations.
Right. He says if your mind falls into darkness, if it's consumed by agitation or defilement, and it takes you an hour or a whole day to snap out of it, you are not safe. The goal is rapid recovery to that state of the awakened one, the knowing one, the joyous one. Puru, putuin, pubok ben, that speed is what protects us.
Another crucial area for practice is handling pain, or vedana, which is obviously excellent preparation for the pain of death. And he suggested an ideal non-fatal training ground for this.
Yes, the dentist's office.
I think I just felt a collective shudder from everyone listening. That is certainly a place where sharp, inescapable pain is guaranteed.
It's the perfect training ground because the pain is intense, but it's generally not life-threatening. When the dentist is drilling or scraping tartar or extracting a tooth, we experience acute vedana. And this is a direct test of the strength of our sati.
So what happens if our mindfulness is weak in that moment?
The mind becomes agitated, panicked. It struggles. The word is turanturai. We can't observe anything clearly because the mind fuses with the pain, creating the identity. I am in pain.
Right.
The goal, however, is to develop sati that's strong enough to achieve a separation of the aggregates. Vipassana on Vedana. We must see the pain, Vedana, as separate from the physical body, and crucially, separate from the mind, Chit.
The pain is just the pain.
That's the instruction. The pain is just the pain.
Yep.
Jep Gorswan Jep Pai. The mind remains neutral and just watches. It doesn't struggle against the sensation.
That mental separation ensures that the mind, which is our true refuge, doesn't get dragged into the chaos of a temporary physical sensation.
And this practice is the direct training for the pain we encounter during the final moments of life. If we can separate our mind from the intense, overwhelming pain of a tooth extraction, we are far more equipped to navigate the final agony of the body breaking down.
Finally, we have to discuss the ultimate goal here, which is neutrality, being klang. And this neutrality extends even to the things we usually seek out, like happiness.
This is the final step in the discipline of Satipatthana. The instruction is Vinaya lok apicha dhammana, to remove both delight, apicha, and aversion dhammana towards the world.
We easily understand aversion. We don't like anger or sadness or restlessness. We want them to disappear. But that very desire to make them disappear is itself a form of clinging.
Exactly. When those defilements arise, the tendency to dislike them is yinrai, aversion. And this aversion is the fuel for the fire.
So what's the right approach?
Luang Por teaches that when anger arises, we must simply know it has arisen, but the mind must remain neutral towards it. If the mind is truly neutral, the anger will cease on its own because we are not feeding it with our internal resistance.
And this neutrality must apply to positive emotions as well. This is the tricky part.
Absolutely. If the mind is bright, happy, or experiencing deep calm, and we feel delight in that state in D that is still clinging, we're attached to the pleasant feeling.
So you have to be neutral even about feeling good.
You have to observe and understand the delight itself until it, too, ceases. What's left is a mind in a state of stable, impartial awareness. That neutrality is the final, liberated state.
To bring these complex principles down to earth, let's examine the feedback Luang Por gave to his students. This really highlights the common pitfalls we all face when we try to implement this practice.
These cases are invaluable because they show us how subtle the errors in practice can be, even for people who are very dedicated.
Okay, let's start with case 1. The trap of fixed practice. This was from question 39. The student was practicing a deep samadhi method that involved 18 bodies or dharma spheres, and they were specifically seeking a dharma light.
Right. It sounds like a highly structured, visualization-heavy practice.
It does. And what was Luang Por's feedback?
It was crucial. He said, this approach creates something fixed. It is a worldly path. The Thai is Tuk Tang Kong Lok.
A worldly path. So even though it sounds spiritual, it's not the direct path to insight.
It might lead to good states and deep calm, but it doesn't necessarily lead to vipassana. And the reason is, true insight is about seeing the body and mind as they actually are, which is unfixed, impermanent, and rapidly changing.
So if you're trying to force the mind to see a static image like a light, you're actually avoiding the reality of constant change. And that's the very thing Panya is supposed to illuminate.
You've got it. The correction is to just observe the mind as it is. Know the mind exactly as it is. If the mind is thinking, know it's thinking. If it's happy, know it's happy. If it's scattered, know it's scattered. No construction is needed.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move to case 2. Lack of consistency and external distraction. This was from question 61. This student just admitted they had a known lack of samadhi, they weren't practicing enough, and they were too involved in the world.
This is the classic modern dilemma, isn't it? Too busy, too distracted, not enough time for inner work.
It's everyone's problem. So what was the solution?
It's not complex, but it requires resolve. He advised the student to reduce their necessary interactions with the world and to focus on continuous practice, even in small, unconventional gaps in their day.
So not just sitting on the cushion for an hour.
No. He suggests practicing continuously for 5 or 10 minutes here and there. He even says you can practice while you're using the restroom.
The concept of building small deposits, geblek gebnoi, is so important there. Consistency really does trump intensity. A steady drizzle fills the reservoir faster than a rare downpour.
Absolutely. And that continuity is what builds the automatic, reflexive nature of sati that you need for that 3-second rule to work.
Okay, on to case 3. The need to balance subtle and coarse focus. This comes from questions 96 and 107. The student was focusing intensely on observing the mind-do jitmak and said they felt their mind was just exhausted. Right?
We talked about this earlier, the mind getting burnt out trying to grasp that subtle flow of mental phenomena.
Right. So what's the correction?
The correction, again, is the pivot. Do not abandon the body, he says. Mai tong tinke. The body is the coarse, simple object that recharges your sati and your samadhi. When the mind is strong again, you switch back to the subtle mind. It's an intelligent, non-strenuous use of energy.
And question 107 added another layer to this, about incorrect samadhi.
Yes. The student said their mind felt spacious, comfortable, and outside itself. Long sabai ork pe kong nork.
That sounds pleasant, but if the mind is outside itself, it's not stable. It's not grounded.
Exactly. It's not kautan. It's not entering the base. If your sati is weak, the mind will just wander externally, and you might not even notice until much later.
So what do you do?
The instruction is to gently bring the mind back to its base, like the breath, without any force. Luang Por reminds us that correct samadhi is the immediate cause for panya. Faulty concentration just leads to flawed insight, or, worse, self-importance.
Got it. Okay, final case. Case 4. Dealing with defilements and the urge to fix. This was question 132. This student was experiencing intense anger, tosa, and sadness, and their mind was struggling against these painful feelings.
And the struggle, the aversion is the problem, not the anger itself.
That's the insight.
Yes. Yeah. When anger arises, we must know it. But the moment we feel aversion, that dislike toward the anger, that is the clinging. We're attached to the idea that our mind should be pure and calm all the time.
So what's the correction?
The correction is to observe the dislike itself. Know that the dislike has arisen. When you see and know the dislike ceases. The mind then becomes neutral.
And when the mind is neutral?
When the mind is neutral, just seeing the anger with impartiality, the anger will naturally dissolve. It runs out of fuel. The mind is no longer fanning the flames with resistance or aversion. It's a beautiful, self-regulating mechanism.
It teaches us that the solution isn't fighting the fire, but removing the fuel that our own mind is providing.
That's it, exactly.
We've reached the end of this deep dive into the practical wisdom of self-reliance and the ultimate companion. We've learned that the breath is our unwavering friend, that self-reliance is non-negotiable, and that our body and all our external possessions are merely borrowed property.
And we learn that concerted daily effort, even those small acts of observation, using the 3-second rule, is what's necessary to ensure we are prepared for the moment when we are truly alone, the moment of death. Our mental state at that critical junction will determine the quality of our future.
A powerful reminder.
I'd like to leave you with one final thought to reflect on as you carry on with your day.
Please.
We dedicate immense time, effort, and financial resources to maintaining and worrying about objects we know we must eventually return to the world. Our homes, our cars, our temporary possessions. Given this reality, how much time should we truly be investing in understanding and cultivating the mind? The only thing that can genuinely accompany us, protect us, and liberate us when everything else is gone.
If this content was useful and provided light to you, please press subscribe to the Sadhu Wisdom channel to give encouragement and watch good Dhamma content next time. Press like and share to spread this Dhamma widely. We rejoice in your merit.